Hi again, everyone. Bob Burg back with another episode of Go Giver Influencers. Today's episode is the influential matrix. And this is going to be a lot of fun. What is a matrix? Really? Remember the movie, The Matrix? What is a matrix? It's sort of the foundation from which everything else evolves. It's a frame, is what it really is. And it's interesting because what our guest talks about is a frame from which we can operate, okay, in order to stay very congruent with our values as we build a very profitable business, a very successful business, a very fun business. And it's a system, and she's wonderful with systems. And, I'm a big believer in systems. I always have defined a system as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictable, right? If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. Systems are great. They keep us from having to invent the wheel or reinvent a wheel that's already been invented. So we can utilize the wisdom of someone who's already been there, done that, and can show us how to do the same. Now, I think one key, there's two when it comes to utilizing, plugging into a system. One is that we always need to remember that as important as a system is, the system is there to serve us and to serve those we serve, as opposed to our being the servant of the system, which means there are going to be times where, if it comes down to doing the right thing or following the system, sometimes the right thing is the right thing, and it's varying a little from the system. But wisdom is knowing when that's the case. But there's something else, because people often ask me, well, how do I know whose system to utilize? Who do I know who to plug into? And my thought is this, and of course it's different for different people. But my feeling is, first, to make sure the person who is the inventor of the system, if you will, the person who has the system, to make sure that their character is high, that their character is congruent with your character, that they're someone who you can follow in that way. And also make sure that the actual how-to aspect is congruent with your personality style, or with your style, because someone can have a great system and they can be a great person, a very high character, but there's different ways of getting to the same place. And if what they're teaching is just not something you're going to do, and I'm not talking about being outside your comfort zone, I'm talking about it's totally just different, you're not going to do it. So it's important to connect with a person of high character, high integrity, and whose way of doing things is congruent with you. I can't think of anybody better in that case to bring on than our guest, because she is a person of the highest character and the highest integrity. And she also has a way of doing things, whether it's exactly your way or not, it's good. And you can fit into it. And you'll see why as we talk about this. Carrie Wilkerson is a humorist, a strategist, and encourager. And as she says, put that in an ice cream, Ben & Jerry. She's also the best-selling author of The Barefoot Executive, the ultimate guide for being your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Also, she's an international speaker. I've had her at 2 or 3 of my conferences. I can't remember, but one of the few that we had every year. She was just in such demand. I've rarely seen a person who connects on stage with their audience members. She's wonderful. Also a sought-after television and radio personality. She's been featured on CNN and Fox Business, in Success and Entrepreneur magazines. She's been named by Forbes as a top small business influencer. She's consulted with Google and other businesses, thought leaders on growth strategies, productivity, and current trends. However, she mostly enjoys helping extraordinary people live extraordinary lives. She's worked from home for over 20 years while raising 4 kids, now aged 10 through 21. She's a wonderful person. I adore her. I adore her family. And she's tough. and she's no nonsense. And as sweet as she is, she calls things as she sees them, which tend to be exactly what we need to hear all the time, saying, bless your heart. And when she says that, there's trouble. She'll help you make a plan to be more productive and more profitable without sacrificing your priorities. Her main website is Carrie, that's with an I-E, carriewilkerson.com. That and the URL to her other resources, including her free video series, Shannon will be putting in the discussion window during the show. She's one of the most astute entrepreneurs I've ever met. Truly a privilege to have her with us. My suggestion, if you have a question for her, get it in that window, the discussion window. I will do my best to, again, multitask and look over there and try to catch it and send it on to Carrie. Hi, Carrie. How are you, my friend?
Fine. I'm so full of myself after that introduction. I need to just hang up and go do some marketing. That's good. I'm going to use that, just exactly what you read, to market myself. I'd hire her.
You are that and much more, my friend.
You are sweet. Now, I do want to clarify with people, when you say we're friends, like when Bob comes to town, he tells me he's taken my girls out for dessert before. When I go to his town, he picks me up at the airport and takes me for tacos. Yeah. So we're not just those pretend friends you hear about on air. We are really, really friends. And we've had some great conversations. We've talked about everything from politics and gender issues and disparity in our industries and more. We have a great respect for each other's businesses and our families, saying hello to your mom and dad for me, and also for each other's faith. So I love that, because in a time where people are seeking other like people or people they agree with only, I think Bob and I are a great example that you don't have to agree on every issue to really be great friends, respect each other, and still hold firm to your beliefs and your thoughts. So Bob, thank you. I'm always honored when you ask me to come. Now, how big did you say your coffee cup was? Because I don't know. You're holding yours like a fist to the camera.
I think yours is bigger.
Look, it's as big as my head almost.
Yeah. So
we're coffee drinkers, Bob and I.
Yeah, I like that though. I like yours.
When it's full, it's hard to lift.
Now, I want to, I always ask you this because I never get tired of hearing it because it's so inspiring. Will you, before we get into the systemization stuff here, can you just share your story? I just love this.
Yes, so I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I never had a big vision or a big passion for business. I didn't have any business training 21 years ago. I was great at all the jobs that I did. I was in corporate America. I was a high school teacher. I was in private sector. I did it all. I often say I will never be Miss America, but I proudly wear the crown for miscellaneous. Because I did a lot of different things. But then something happened. I adopted 2 toddlers who are now full grown. I adopted, oh look, same shirt. How embarrassing. There we go. I adopted 2 toddlers, and instantly all my priorities changed. Instantly. So it didn't matter that I didn't have a vision or a passion or any of those things. What did matter is that I had to make more money so I could be home with them, because they were high needs and lots of therapy appointments and lots of things happening. I really felt like I needed to be with them. So I said, I'm intelligent, I'm trained, I have certain skill sets. There's got to be a way that I can make money from home. So I started researching at this place called the library. It looks a lot like the wall behind you.
I remember those.
You remember those? You'd go in with a card, come out with a stack of books. Did a lot of research on what to do from home. Basically started a sales career at that point because business in a box was one of the only options. But I said, I think this internet is going to have some legs to it. I wonder how I could use my skills, my smarts, and this internet thing and create a business. And so that really is how Carrie Wilkerson got into business 21 years ago, because I needed $1,000 a month, because I needed to be home with those 2 kids who are now 21 and almost 23. and I needed to find a way, make a way. So I'm not the person that says pursue your passion. I was pursuing time with my kids, but I had to have some profit to back it up. So that's how I got started. We had several measures of success with all those businesses. I had a service-based business at one point, and people started saying, how are you home during the day? We added more kids in that time. I gave birth to a couple the old-fashioned way, and people started asking me to tell my story and to come speak on stages. I never was going to be a speaker. I was pulled into that. And even when you had me come speak at your event, I wouldn't have told people I was a speaker. I was just sharing what was happening in our business. Turns out I had a knack for it. Turns out there was a demand for it. And the Barefoot Executive became a book, became a platform, and now Carrie Wilkerson herself has Barefoot as part of my platform, and now I speak almost full time.
Yeah, and now you're speaking in front of crowds of sometimes 20, 25,000 people, and
lots of big crowds, which is humbling and exciting, and people need to be encouraged. Those were Ziegler's last words to me, incidentally, is Carrie, you're an encourager, and people are hurting. You need to encourage them. Do that.
I love that. So you have gone, and you alluded to this, you've actually gone through a few different configurations, if you will. And you've been every time I've seen you, since I've known you, you've been very successful at it. And it's always with a methodology in mind. It's always systemized. Is that part of when we're talking about this matrix? Is that part of it? Is that what you're going to really share? Is that how you did it?
Yeah, I think that every system comes about because of something that we're doing repeatedly. And then we say, oh, hey, look, I'm doing that repeatedly, or should be doing that repeatedly. And then it becomes a matrix because you name it, right? And then you refine it and you hone it. But yes, the motive matrix can absolutely be applied to any business and or family unit or endeavor. People that are watching that aren't necessarily in business will see how they can apply it to their home structure. It's a decision-making process. It's a priority-setting process.
Okay, so break it down then. I'd love to hear about this. Break it down for us.
Okay, so here's what happens typically in the entrepreneurial or even in your work-life journey is you go into the office and you have a crazy list of things to do, or you wake up and your email is crazy and you have a lot of things to do. What do I do now? What do I work on first? What do I not work on? Carrie, I know I need to be making money, but I need to be doing this. What do I do next? And we end up overwhelmed and overworked, and we kind of shut down, or we retreat into the world of Facebook surfing, right? We just get lost in it and we're not making any progress. So I decided early on, what is my priority in my business right now? What do I really need to be focused on? Because everything I touch, everything I do needs to be related to the one priority. So in reverse engineering, I have decided that there are 5 core areas as entrepreneurs or business owners that we tend to focus on. 5 core areas. You want me to just dive in, do all of it?
I'd love it, absolutely.
Okay. So, because I'm a preacher's kid and also a speaker, they all start with the same letter because alliteration helps us remember. So the motive matrix says there are typically 5 core motives in your business. Profits, because we want to show ourselves the money, right? You can write these down. Profits, prospects, so list building, lead generation, those kind of things. Pathways. Now, pathways is really sexy to some people, not as sexy to other people. Pathways means your infrastructure, your systemization, your if A, then B, then C happens. Also has to do with your website or your fulfillment or your welcome kit or your thank you note after interviews. Bob is really great with his pathways when he's saying thank you. He has a great follow-up system that he also teaches in his books. So pathways. Then there's products. So maybe products is my core focus right now because I need to package up something to sell, whether that's a book or whether that is a coaching package or whether it's a widget. You have to have a product to sell. And the fifth would be positioning. Positioning means your branding or your name for yourself or your alliances or your credibility in the market or your social proof. So if positioning is my core motive right now, that means that even though I'm a keynote speaker and I get paid money to talk, if somebody says, hey, Anthony Robbins needs an extra speaker to fill in a spot at his event, but the budget is only $2,000. We know that's below your budget, but would you come? If positioning is my primary motive that quarter, then I say yes. Why? Because I was invited by Anthony Robbins to speak at an event, and that would look good on my website, that would look good on my resume. If I'm in that realm of personal development, which I am, or motivation, which I am, or business, which I am, it would all be good. That would be positioning. And so this is how we base our decisions. We say, what is my motive right now? Now, human nature, Bob, is that we want to say yes to all of it. Well, it's all I'm starting, or I'm struggling, or I'm strapped, so I have to choose all of them. No, when you choose everything, you choose nothing. You accomplish nothing. So you have to choose a primary and a secondary. And I tend to call those M1 and M2, my first motive and my second motive. Okay?
Can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
Because when I hear that, and it totally makes sense to me intellectually, and then I know me as a person who, suffers from that bright, shiny object thing where I know in advance, wow, just two things, Carrie? And I'm wondering, when you have a new client, do you get pushback on that? Or am I the only one? Is that my own insecurities just kind of?
No, that's vanity sabotage. That's ego overwhelm. That's because we think we have to do it all or that it has to get done now. But it's everybody, Bob, it's everybody. Carrie, that's nice that you can focus on one thing, but I'm not telling you to pretend those other things don't exist. I'm telling you to give them time and space. Here's an example from the parenting world. I love how this mom told me this once. She had 3 little kids, and she said, when I'm busy or haggard and they all need something, the baby's crying, the toddler's into something, and the 5-year-old wants my attention. She said, how do I decide which one to take care of first, which one to tend to first? Human nature says we go to the baby first. The baby's crying the loudest, we can pick that one up. They must need us the most. We're urgently taking care of the baby. The truth is, she said, I've learned to take care of the one that will remember. The 5-year-old is going to remember a week from now that you always go to the baby first, that you don't take care of her first. The baby has no sense of time, isn't going to know. I'm not saying neglect the other kids. I'm saying when you're tending to urgencies, you tend to the one that's going to have the biggest impact on what you're doing right now.
Wow.
Make sense?
Yeah, wisdom bomb right there. Absolutely.
So if you have these 5 children, so to speak, and you have to pick one, let's say that Bob, right now, his motive is, his primary motive is, let's say, profit. And let's say your secondary motive is pathways, because you have some systems that are a mess. This is hypothetical, y'all. Bob doesn't have anything that's a mess.
Yes, he does.
Systems are a mess, and you really have a disconnected B to E, and maybe Kathy quits and leaves you, so your infrastructure is stacking up. So you want to focus on profits and then pathways. That's your 2 that you're focused on right now. Okay, got it? Everybody write that down, because then this is when it starts to make sense. Then in your inbox, you get that same invitation from somebody on Anthony Robbins' team to do a webinar for his audience. Do a webinar for his audience. It's not paid, but you would have the credibility of teaching Anthony Robbins' audience. But there's no money tied to it. There's no lead generation tied to it, and it's going to add time to your day. Your opportunistic paranoia, your FOMO, says, yes, absolutely, I'm going to do that webinar for Anthony Robbins, even though he's not on it, because I want to. It'll look good. The exposure is good, right? All those things we tell ourselves. That's ego, our vanity flaring up. Or with the motive matrix, you say, wow, thank you so much for thinking of me. What is my opportunity for income on this? And then you run it through your head. There's no opportunity for income there. What is my opportunity for improving my infrastructure on this? My pathways? There is none. As a matter of fact, it's going to put you in a tipping point because you're adding something to your calendar. You're adding something that Kathy's temp is having to do since she left you. And it's making things worse, but now you have added to your to-do list. I can very easily say, thank you so much for thinking of me for this opportunity. However, this doesn't fit with the core motives in my business this quarter. Is it possible you could consider me at a future time, or we could follow up about this in a few months? Great. Respond, delete the email, no guilt, all grace, and you're focused on what you're doing.
Got it.
If Anthony Robbins people call and say, we want you to do this webinar, and on the back end, we'd love for you to mention your product or service or membership site. As well, our team handles the infrastructure from it, and then we just send you a check. That's a no-brainer. You can say yes to that before you finish reading the email because it's adding to your profit, which is your primary motive, and it's not putting weight on your infrastructure. As a matter of fact, if you're looking at it very meta, you could say, I wonder if they'd give me a behind-the-scenes look of how that system looks, because that might be infrastructure I can put in place while I'm focused on pathways.
Right.
So that's an easy yes versus the ego yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And so I challenge all my clients, all my friends, even myself, every quarter to evaluate where I am in the business, to do what I call the naked before picture. What are my incomes? What are my outgoes? What does my list look like? What's struggling? What's hurting? What's going well? What's not going well? So that means, what do I need to focus on now? And typically it boils down to two things, and they do tend to feed each other. Mm-hmm. If my motive is platform positioning and Anthony calls to speak, that's an easy yes. He calls, or somebody else calls and says, let's do a collaborative book. That's an easy yes. But if prospects is your number one on that, then you have to say, will the book be marketed with a lead generation campaign? How will this add to my prospects? Because exposure is really just as effective as running naked through the streets. It doesn't really grow your business. It just gives you a little freedom to feel like you're showing off for a minute, right? So that being said, this is why the motive matrix matters. If you hit your benchmarks for your goals within 4, 6, 8 weeks, evaluate again and adjust.
Now, that's what I was going to ask, because I assumed that they do, obviously, the motives M1, M2, they change.
Yes.
Is there any kind of not rule of thumb, it's not even the right one, but any sort of guide in terms of when they would normally change? Or is it, as you said, when you're doing a review, you're saying, okay, how did that work out? What do I need to do next?
Yeah, well, if you've hit your goal of building your list, or you have the pathway in place that's now bringing in prospects, and you have that now set up, then by all means, let's go focus on a different area. Let's go create a product so we can add to your profit now at that point. So now you've got the 5-year-old settled with her snack and her puzzle, and she's okay. And now we're dealing with the baby who needs to be changed and fed, right? So yes, you've watched me evolve and change and grow businesses. It's because I changed my focus, not my brand, not who I'm serving, not my niche. I am focused on those motives and my best yeses.
Carrie, and you've been very disciplined with that, so it brings up a question for me. When you're counseling someone, because I know you have a lot of high-end clients, if you will, and a lot of people that you work with one-on-one. I believe you still do, right? As well as you're speaking, or do you not do that as much?
I do.
I believe you do. Okay, so how difficult is it, do you find, for your customer, you probably know what I'm going to ask, to stick with this?
Do you walk your cats on a leash?
My cat won't let me put a leash on him to walk him.
So leaders and entrepreneurs are difficult, but when they invest heavily, you know, they do give me a little leeway to push. I am constantly redirecting. It just like with my kids, right? I'm constantly redirecting, but this is also something I teach my kids. You say I'm very disciplined. The fact is the motive matrix was born out of desperation. I have 4 kids. I have a spouse that's gone about 90% of the time. So I'm a single mom a lot. I don't broadcast that on social media much because the girls and I are alone a lot. One of my kids is special needs. So he's very high needs and requires a whole different level of care. So I had to only be saying yes to the best things, or I'm saying yes to everything and then I'm getting nothing done well. I kind of created this when I was speaking, getting asked to speak. I had a lot of people want me to come speak at their event for free or to sell. So I had to create the matrix on, why am I speaking? Am I speaking because I love speaking? Am I speaking to do a favor? Am I speaking because I'm going to get leads or because I'm going to actually make money? If this is taking time, energy, and influence away from one area, my friend Pam Shaw says this, time from one area, time invested in one area is time taken away from another. So if I'm going to take time away from my core business, from my family, from my home, from my own health and energy, as you know, traveling is a beast on your body. If I'm going to do that, it has to have an ROI. What's the return on investment that my business needs now? Is it immediate cash? Is it immediate prospects? Is the creation of a product? Is it platform building? Or am I a hot mess and I need some systems?
Wow. Okay. I get that. I want to ask you one other question, kind of a little bit on a different track. And you and I, you were on guess what? I think it was about a year ago when you were on my podcast, the Go Giver podcast, and we discussed mostly different things on this. It was a different topic. So if you love Carrie, which by now, if you don't already know her, I'm sure you love her. Shannon, can you put the URL to the podcast with Carrie? But I did ask you this on the other one too, but I want to ask you again for this audience. You have a wonderful family. What I hate that. What is your secret? Because there's no, but what is it you did to just raise such remarkable kids?
You're making me emotional. I do have an amazing family, and the other reason I created the Motive Matrix was so that my business could revolve around my priorities instead of me trying to fit my priorities in the cracks of my business. Period. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they're so amazing. I'm not saying we don't have struggles. We have struggles. We have tough decisions. We have the same kind of conflict other people have, but they are intelligent, musical, inquisitive,
kind and charitable.
Kind kids. They're caring. They see the underdog. They root for the underdog. They are, they love their mama, which is always a plus. I don't know, except that I've always talked to them the way I wanted them to talk to me. It doesn't mean I don't correct them, but I speak intelligently to them. Kids are so smart, all ages. Kids are so smart. I teach them these things. I have one that wants to be a Broadway actress. And so when she says to me, can I join this or can I go do this? I say, well, what's your primary motive this year? What's your big goal that you're working on this year? Does this add to it? Does this take away from it? What does this do with your time bank, your energy bank, your replenishment bank? So I think maybe what they have going for them is that I've treated them like my most important client. Not to say my life revolves around them. One of them has been bugging me all day to come pick her up from school. She has an injury. She fell down the stairs last night. It was pretty nasty. She's really bumped and bruised, but it's not urgent. It's not emergency. And what I know is she needs to save up those days that she's going to be gone for other more urgent days. So today I was like the stern mom, and I made her stay. But that being said, my kids know I care. And when I was a kid, I remember feeling like adults, even parents, could be dismissive and think that my issues weren't important just because they weren't their issue. And I promised myself that when I was a mom, I would remember that that boy having a crush on you or not is a big deal, or you getting that part or not is a really big deal, or your schedule, or who you sit by in school. In the scheme of the world, it's not a big deal, but in a scheme of their world, it's a big deal. And I'm trying to teach them to not only be intelligent, to think intelligently, but to feel intelligently. Emotional intelligence, I think, is something my kids score really well on in the scheme of things. And I think that's something we've worked on. I don't care if they can hit a ball. I don't care if they compete on a team. Two things I want from my kids. I want them to love and to feel for other people and themselves very deeply, even when it hurts. And I want them never to be afraid of a microphone. They don't have to be a public speaker, but if you can master a microphone without fear of what people are thinking of you, you can campaign for office, you can present a book report, you can audition, you can sing, or you can speak passionately about political topics or activism, things that matter to you. So the microphone is a big skill set in my house.
Carrie Wilkerson is a humorist, a strategist, and as Zig Ziglar told her, an encourager. And you've just seen that for yourself. She's also the author of the best-selling The Barefoot Executive, the ultimate guide for being your own boss and achieving financial freedom. And she's an international speaker. Check out everything Carrie Wilkerson at Carrie, that's with an I-E, carriewilkerson.com, including bringing her in to totally light up your next sales meeting or leadership convention. I've had her speak at mine numerous times. She is that good. And definitely pick up her free video series at carriewilkerson.com/7 days, the number 7 days. And of course, Shannon's putting that in the discussion section. As a reminder, if you haven't picked up John David Mann's and my newest book, The Go-Giver Influencer, make sure to do that. That's at thegogiver.com, as well as our original The Go-Giver book. And let's see, if you're interested in attending Kathy Tajanel's and my next Go-Giver Entrepreneurs Academy, that's in November. Go to gogiverentrepreneurs.com. Shannon will be posting that. If you want to be a professional speaker and learn how to have a fun and profitable speaking business, go to gogiverspeaker.com. Check out our, the Go-Giver Influencers Facebook page. Again, Shannon, as always, is putting all of those in the discussion page so you can see that. Hey, Carrie, thank you again, as always. I'm kind of snuck looks at the discussion over here, and people are loving it and loving you as I knew they would. You are a joy, and you remain one of my all-time favorite human beings. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
And that is it for today. We'll be back next week with another episode of Go-Giver Influencers. Have a great day, everyone, and a terrific week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.